Welcome to another episode with your host, Robert E. Hansen, psychic medium, author, and public speaker.
I will never fall in love again. This is a story about a middle-aged woman that I had done a reading for many, many years ago, probably 7 or 8 years ago. But I remembered her, and I remember she had come to my office, and her spouse of over 40 years had died. They were a very close couple, and they were like hand in glove. From what she explained to me, there was great devotion, great love. They fell in love as high school students. They went to college together, and if my memory serves me well, they wound up getting married shortly after they graduated college. He had gone away to school and came back, and they reconnected from college, and they got married. And they were extremely happy and very, very devoted to each other. They had a family of children, and like many, they had grandkids. It was a really beautiful but very heartbreaking experience because she was with this guy for 40 years, and cancer had come to visit, and he wound up crossing over, and he had died when she was probably in her mid to late 50s. And I had come, to meet her at a reading. We had spent time. I explained a lot of things that had happened, and she knew her husband had come to visit, and he had crossed over, of course. And, for a lot of people, when these experiences take place, they don't always buy into it. But I gave her at that time so much information, his name and so on, that she just couldn't walk around, that she knew her husband's soul had come to pay her a visit. I remember also very clearly at the end of the session how she was weeping. It had only been maybe 6 months after he had died that she had come to see me. Her grief was very fresh. It was very raw. Her tissues were being used rapidly as we were doing the session. And she said to me, "Robert, I will never fall in love again. I will never have a relationship like this again. My heart is broken. I'm only in my mid to late 50s. I forget exactly her age, but I'm estimating it to be around 56, something like that." And I said to her, "You're relatively still a young woman. I know you've got kids, but they're all grown and they're out of the house. And I know you have grandkids living with their parents, but you fundamentally live alone, and you're only in your mid to late 50s. And it really doesn't matter really what age you are, but in her case, she was 57 or so, 56, something like that." And she said, I don't care. No one can ever match up to him. No one could give me the love he gave me. We were inseparable. And it was really beautiful. I mean, she really conveyed this very, very, very emotionally sensitive, bright light about the man she loved so much. And I'm sure he loved her the same way. And I'm sure when he was dying of cancer, a part of his heart was breaking because he knew his physical body would no longer lay in his wife's arms. They would never be able to hold each other in the world again. And it was heartbreaking, and it should be heartbreaking. It's very tough. Fast forwarding, about 6 years later, I'm in one of my venues. I worked on TV, I worked in restaurants, I worked in hotels, I've worked fundraisers, I've done a lot of stuff, and I've met thousands and thousands of people over the years. I can't even calculate, frankly, how many. But in this particular venue I was at, I'm standing there saying goodbye to people, and I get a tap on the shoulder. Unbeknownst to me, she was in the audience, and I had obviously no idea there was hundreds of people in the room. And I'm just saying goodnight, waving goodbye to folks, and a few people come up and, shake hands or ask a question. And when I'm doing this, all of a sudden, behind me, tapping me on the shoulder is this woman. At first I didn't recognize her, and then, as I zoomed in a little bit, I said, "I know you, I recognize you." And standing to her side was this guy, a very pleasant guy. I guess he was maybe 60 at most, maybe even late 50s also, like her. And I said, "Nice to meet you guys, how are you doing?" And they gave me their names, and she introduced me to her new husband. And it kind of struck me for it. Then I began to put everything back together, and I said, this is the woman that swore to me up and down, left and right, that she would never fall in love again, that love was impossible. And I smiled, and I shook hands. I said, nice to meet you again. Thanks for saying hello to me. And she just said, I'm delighted to introduce you. I finally have fallen in love again. And I wanted to come see you. And that was really it. She didn't make a big fanfare out of it. But I remembered how deeply touched she was, how deeply sad she was when her first husband, the first husband in her life, had died. And here she is now with a brand new love, a brand new guy, brand new light in her heart. And she seemed very much at peace and very happy. And I knew then that the man that had crossed over, her husband, had acted as an angel. He not only honored the love that they shared, he gave them a gift of grace, a blessing of renewal. He had given them a fresh baptism of the heart, releasing the bondage of any guilt or sorrow she may feel. And with his spiritual permission, he gave this really nice young woman who had suffered for quite some time from his passing. He gave her a gift of love to share with another. And she received it without even recognizing what had happened. I didn't say anything to her. It wasn't my place at that time to explain what happened. I simply smiled because love can never be touched by death. And as long as you are open to love, as long as you are open to the absolute joy of love and allow yourself to feel love, that is not to say for some of you, you don't feel guilt, or you may say you don't want to reconnect. That's understandable. I do understand that. But to fall in love again, which happens spontaneously, not love that is born out of loneliness or not having enough money in your bank account. That's not love. That's just a needy dependency, and that often is filled with heartbreak. But real love, the real sense of being loved and giving love, that's what she experienced. I could see it in her step, her smile. I could see the way he put his arm around her shoulder. How they thank me for just doing what I do. And I always tell people it's through God's grace alone. It's got nothing to do with me. It's just a gift I've been given, and I've been sharing it with people for 27 years. And I hope the story touched you. So if you're out there and you've suffered a terrible loss of a spouse, someone that deeply, deeply you've connected with and they've moved on into God's care, know that love is waiting right around the corner if you're open to it. It's not a requirement. It just means if you're open, make yourself available, be sensitive and conscious of your motives and your reasons. But when it's real love, you'll know. And when it's there, receive it because it is being sent to you by those who know that you're not measuring one against the other. You are simply falling back in love again. And that, my friends, makes them very, very happy and honors the sacred soul that you first had fallen in love with. Thank you for joining me, everybody.